Today on Homeworthy, we're heading out east. The Hamptons is known for its breathtaking beaches and luxurious coastal interiors. We'll first tour the famous Grey Gardens restored by Liz Lange, CEO of women's fashion line Fig, then step inside the picturesque cottage of fashion designer Amanda Ross Bacon, and finally we'll visit the sleek, James Bond-inspired home of Timothy Godbold. You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Before today's episode, click the join button below to support all of the storytelling we do on this channel. Our growing community of members help to directly fund more videos so we can capture these extraordinary homes from around the world. So join today to receive early and exclusive access to new Homeworthy videos.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Liz Lange. Welcome to Grey Gardens.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
So we're sitting here at my house, Grey Gardens, which is a house that we purchased from Ben Bradley and Sally Quinn. Ben Bradley is most well known as being a longtime editor-in-chief of the Washington Post, figured prominently as somebody that broke the Watergate scandal. I'm really dating myself here. And Sally Quinn was his wife, and they cut a very sort of wide circle in Georgetown and DC. They were extraordinarily social, and they also entertained at this house nonstop. Had people like Lauren Bacall, Michael Douglas, many Kennedys. I think the reason that Grey Gardens is so famous is because in the 1970s, a documentary was made about this house and its inhabitants, and it really took off and became kind of a phenomenon. To this day, there are so many people I know who can quote every line from that documentary to me. What made it so intriguing was that this house, a very beautiful, very stately house, really almost steps from the beach in East Hampton, was owned by Jackie Kennedy's aunt and uncle and cousins. But what had happened was somehow Jackie's aunt, known as Big Edie, and her daughter, known as Little Edie, were living in this house together, just the two of them. They had fallen on hard times. The Beals had divorced, the money had gone away, and Little Edie and Big Edie were living in a house that the town of East Hampton was actually on the verge of condemning for very good reason. So for those of you that have seen the movie, you may know the attic was filled with raccoons. Most of the rooms were falling apart. If you took a step in them, the floor would actually disintegrate underneath your feet. There had been a few fires in the house, so many rooms were just completely destroyed by fire, not repaired. So this really captured the imagination of people worldwide, because the Kennedys were so glamorous and so well known that they would have an aunt and a first cousin living in such squalor, and squalor is an understatement. Really kind of just got everybody talking and thinking, and people kind of became obsessed with Big Edie and Little Edie. If you've seen the documentary, you know they're interesting characters. They say funny things, and they live here and seem somewhat unaware of the fact that they're living in these extraordinarily reduced circumstances. So this house, the way it looks today, has been a labor of love, first by the people that bought it from Little Edie, Ben Bradley and Sally Quinn. They restored it originally, and they're heroic for doing so. And then 30 years later, they sold it to us, and we embarked on a second major renovation. And my inspiration when we were renovating was really to bring it back to the house that it was when the Beals, this very prominent, very social register family, came in 1923 and purchased this house as their weekend house. They were members of the illustrious Maidstone Club. They lived in a beautiful apartment in New York City, and this house was absolutely gorgeous. And then so much had happened to it that sadly it was far from gorgeous. And I really wanted to take it back to those early years. It was first built in 1897, and the years really from 1897 probably till around 1950, the first 50 years of this house, when it was really a stately, what they would call beach cottage in East Hampton. And so hopefully that's what we've achieved here. But that's really what the house is known for. And it never ceases to amaze me, the amount of fans this house has, the amount of people that gather outside our gates on a daily basis to get a peek at it. It's quite something. And I feel, I feel a certain level of responsibility. That on the one hand, when we came in to do this renovation, I knew we needed to make this house our own, and it needed a massive renovation. But I'd like to think it was more of a restoration, because I knew that there were so many people out there that would be very upset if this house didn't sort of retain its original look and feel to a certain degree. I mean, not the 1970s version that you see in the documentary. But so we were very mindful of both modernizing it for our family, but also being very respectful of its history. And that's really what informed our massive 3-year renovation, restoration, kind of taking the whole thing from the top work that we did on this house. So this is the entry of Grey Gardens, probably one of the most iconic rooms in the house. When super fans come over, the first thing they want to do is get on that staircase and start waving those flags like Little Edie and marching down those stairs. So this room, it was very, very important to me that we kept this room as intact as possible. Obviously, we renovated it completely, but we saved every piece of molding, stored them, and then, and restored them, and then put them back. And where we couldn't, we created the same so that it would really feel familiar to all those Grey Gardens fans. We wanted to have fun with the house, though. I mean, as you can probably see, I'm a huge, huge fan of color. So I thought just doing this leopard wallpaper in blue going all the way up to the second floor landing would be fabulous. And I really like the mix of things. So you'll notice I've got this Fornasetti sort of chest of drawers mixed with some kind of wild chinoiserie with a monkey that I probably found on Dixie Highway in Palm Beach, where I also have a house. And then there's more mid-century modern going on over here. We had an artist paint these floors. They were the original wooden floors to look kind of like a black and white traditional, but punched up. We kept the banister exactly as it was. Again, because the staircase is so iconic for people that are familiar with the documentary, which of course so many people are. So it was just about restoring it, but it was not about changing it. So that's really, the bulk of what goes on in this entry room. I think the most exciting moment is, for most people, this staircase. I also reached out to a bunch of different artists that I liked and knew of and asked them to imagine art for Grey Gardens, some kind of take on anything, whatever just came to their mind. So one woman painted this for me. She's a British artist, and that's meant to be Little Edie, I think, in the garden. And we've scattered them throughout the house. I'm a fashion designer, and mixing colors and prints, it's like everyone has a little superpower. That just comes really naturally to me. I think of almost every color and every print as a neutral, and I just treat them that way. And it usually works. So I guess I would say I'm not afraid of color or of print at all, as you can probably tell. Sometimes maybe I go too far, but I like it. And I think if one loves it and puts it together, it will work. You can sort of see this Fornasetti chest of drawers has within it, you can see a cheetah walking, and there's also a lot of leaves. And of course, it's kind of ombreed with the different levels of golds and browns and yellows. And it's unexpected. It's not of this time period, so it's kind of unexpected. And I like things that are unexpected. I think expected is boring. So I really mix it up. You wouldn't expect Fornasetti with mid-century modern necessarily with chinoiserie. You wouldn't necessarily expect it all together, but I like to do it that way. I actually collect this sort of mid-century Italian modern glass. So this is a pink grouping, and I thought it was kind of fun to do a pink grouping alongside a pale blue grouping. And you'll see it throughout the house because it's something that I've always collected, that I love. I'm constantly scouring eBay and First Dibs and Cherish and all those sites. And there's this little boutique downtown called The End of History, and they have tons of it. So I'm a huge fan. And you'll see my little collections everywhere. Clearly, I'm a crazy person. So everything in this house is logoed. Even the umbrellas, you can't see, but these are GG, which is our house logo, done in bamboo, because I adore bamboo. So these are our house umbrellas, and you'll see other logoed items as we make our way through the house. I'll point them out. I even have matchbooks in different sizes, all with the GG logo. Some have our flowers around it, some are simple logo without the flowers. Logo, logo, logo. I love it. So here we are in the living room. This is the room, I often spend time here during the day, but it's really used a lot at night. We have a lot of dinner parties here. We love to have our friends over. And typically after dinner, after we're done, we will retire to this room. We'll sit around, we'll have more drinks, coffee, tea, desserts. And so I wanted this room to work really, really well for large groups, for small groups. So I kind of divided it in half, although it can also just be one. It's two halves and it's also one. So on this side of the room, of course, we've got a full seating area, all these little tchotchkes that I picked up along the way. I am a, nonstop shopper. So when I'm not shopping for clothes, I'm shopping for objects and tchotchkes and things to put around, and whatever I like I just buy, and I figure I'm going to find a home for it. So that's sort of what happened here. You see some animals. I'm really into animals. Some shells. I love this vintage lobster plate. Hydrangeas are kind of the flower of this house. We have so many of them. During the height of the season, our front porch and our front driveway is just an explosion of pink and blue hydrangeas. It's really fabulous. And so we kind of picked up that theme wherever I could within the house. So I often keep hydrangeas here. This painting actually was interesting. We have a painting in our New York City apartment that just says chrysanthemum that we love. It's in our living room. And we had the idea of asking that artist to make one for this house that had a flower that reflected the flowers that we see around Grey Gardens. So he came up with hydrangea. He does his own typeface, he does his own coloring, and he made this one for us. And I just think it works really perfectly in the room over the fireplace. So this is just one little seating area. I love this guy. He's kind of crazy, and I did find him in a little antique shop on Antiques Row, Dixie Highway in West Palm Beach. Amongst my shopping, and I loved it. I also found these fake tusks. They are not real, but they're very 1970s to me, the way people used to decorate, and I love it. So this is just one fun seating area. Then as we move along, I had the concept of this room being divided by sort of a round settee. So you can sit on it, you can face either direction depending on who you're talking to, and we do. I had seen an image in a magazine of a house in the 1960s, and they had an unusual potted plant on top of their settee, so I copied that. So these two flamingos are mid-century modern, also picked up at an antique show along the way, possibly in Paris at their flea market, where I did a lot of shopping for this house. In fact, I bought this pair of pale blue ceiling fixtures at the Marche Pousse in Paris. When I started this room, my first concept of this room was that the walls would be white, lacquered white, and that most of the fabric would be one of my favorites from Quadrille, which is Arbre de Matisse. It's an iconic print. I actually have it in my bedroom in New York in a different color. I'm highly consistent in my taste. So we did this brown and white, and the whole room kind of got built around it, that the room is basically brown and white with little touches of pale blue. And because the house is old and traditional, I certainly wanted some of the furnishing to be traditional, but I also wanted to juxtapose it with more modern things. So, for instance, this mid-century modern coffee table that I found, I want to say John Salabello, who has a store out here and does fabulous mid-century modern, always has the best curated mid-century modern antiques. And I love the scale of it. I love that it's low. I like very low furniture, very Halston. So it just feels very cozy. I mean, half the time when a lot of people are around, one of us is just sitting on the floor here. So I wanted everything to feel cozy, fun. I'm wild about this huge, oversized elephant planter. I found it in an antique shop. Sadly, his tusks are broken off, but we're about to have that repaired. And every summer I just plant it with orchids. And it's just so funny and unexpected. And I love that. I love things that you won't find anywhere else, that aren't in everyone's house. So certainly I've never seen an elephant planter like this before. Another thing in this room that's nice is it's become a home for a collection of paintings I have and drawings. I love this artist, Frances Hobby. For those of you, I'm aging myself, but I grew up with dolls by somebody named Holly Hobby, and Frances is actually Holly Hobby's daughter. So she paints all these fabulous girls that in some weird way remind me of Little Edie or just feel this house to me. So I've got a huge collection of them. We had to move 2 over to this wall because we have normally a Matthew Wong painting here, but the Matthew Wong is on loan at an exhibit in Amsterdam. So we have more of these girls here by Frances Hobby. Just one detail that that you'll see throughout the house, but since we're here, is that hardware was extremely important to me. So, all of this hardware, we selected and we customized for the house. We did it through Nan's Hardware. And it was very important that we had these more old-fashioned way of opening and closing these French doors. And French doors were something that when we bought the house, it had more windows than French doors. And what was really important to me in this property, because it is so known for its gardens, plus the way we like to live is very indoor-outdoor, that we punched out as many French doors as we could. Again, trying to be very respectful of what this house looked like in its glory years, and its glory years were probably 1900 to about 1950 or so. So we tried to restore it to what it had been in its most magnificent years, and French doors were part of that for us. This is the powder room. I love this Argemans World wallpaper so much that when we were working in this house, I traveled to Milan just to go to their store and to see it. And so we put this wallpaper here. Then we had an artist paint the sconce shades to match it. And I've always been obsessed with the hardware manufacturer P.E. Guerin, and I have their iconic birds as the hardware on our sink. And again, you'll see, as I said, I like logos everywhere, so our guest towels are all logoed in here with the GG. And so this is the powder room. So this is the sunroom. When we bought the house, this room was just a summer room. It wasn't insulated. So we completely redid this room. We made the plaster, palm trees, and the lighting fixtures, and we restored all of these diamond window panes to the size that they had been when the house was first built. And we even used, throughout the house actually, but it's most important in this room, which is practically all glass, we used restoration glass, which is a thinner pane, which is the way the glass that would have been used when the house was built at the turn of the century. That is the proper glass. So we were, wherever we could, we were being quite respectful. And then we were having fun with it, obviously. So I've always been a huge fan of Bonacina wicker furniture. I kind of worship Morella Agnelli, the late Morella Agnelli, and she used it throughout her homes in Italy, and I've always wanted to. So I took this from her. I wanted to have fun with the colors, so we went with the greens and the yellows, and again, it just feels very sunroom. And then these pretty florals that are for Botanica Trading, sort of scattered throughout. We created this fireplace, actually, the entire thing, and it's real and working. Then I threw in these chinoiserie foo dogs on top of it, because of why not? I have a love of animals, so whenever I see them, again, this is Mario Torres, a Mexican artist who does a lot of these. I have a lot of them in my house in Palm Beach, but I threw some in here too. The tiles are original to the house. We restored them. This was the tile floor that had been here from the beginning. And again, because there are so many super fans, these are things that are very, very important to them, and what's important to us as well. What's beautiful about this room is that when you're sitting here, you're surrounded and you have the most beautiful view of our walled garden. And of course, the walled garden is where Grey Gardens gets its name from. It is the most important garden, at the house, and and a very, very iconic garden, worldwide. So it's cool to be able to just sit here and take it all in, and I do that all the time. These are Decor lamps. You think of Decor mostly for wallpaper, but they also do lamps. So we have the Decor lamps here. More wicker, where I did Bonacina for the main seating area. I did Sewn out of London for this little table. This table becomes everything. Sometimes it's an office table for me. Sometimes when we're just a tiny group for dinner, we'll eat here. And sometimes if I've got friends over to play cards, this is where we'll play them. So this is kind of a room that gets a lot of different uses and is, I'd say one of the rooms that I'd call the heart of the house. The kitchen is too, but this is as well. I often work at this table. It's a good place when I actually need to do like serious work and I can't just be balancing a laptop on my lap. I'll sit here. I told you that I love logos. All of our writing pads are logoed with Grey Gardens, but this is where I'll do designing for my brand Fig, which is, I'm always so inspired when I'm thinking about my clothing, when I'm thinking about prints for Fig. I'm very inspired when I'm sitting in these rooms surrounded by these gardens and this level of light. It really gets me wanting to be creative. I don't think I ever run out of inspiration. There's always more, whether it's this house, this gardens, my travel, wherever I happen to be, all the fabulous swans that came before us, people like Gloria Guinness and Babe Paley and Jackie and Lee, Jackie and Lee obviously have a very strong connection to this house. And I'd say that, Jackie Onassis and her sister, Lee Radziwill, are probably my two biggest fashion inspirations. Always, every season for Fig and always for myself. It's what would Jackie wear? What would Lee wear? And there's something about being in this house where they spent time, where their aunt and cousins lived, that certainly is very, very exciting to me and inspirational. I'm a born and bred New Yorker. Grew up, my parents' house was around the corner on Lily Pond Lane, so I've always been coming to this neck of the woods. I improbably became a fashion designer and an entrepreneur in my late 20s. And first I started with a brand that people often associate me with because it's my name, with Liz Lange Maternity, which was a line of maternity clothing that I started, frankly, before I'd even had my two children, who are now 23 and 25. It's crazy, time flies. And but today I own another fashion brand that I actually acquired during COVID, a brand that I was a huge fan of. It's called Fig, and it's the French spelling, which is F-I-G-U-E, and it's a line of women's clothing, dresses, caftans. I think it's very glamorous, and it's very much the way I like to dress these days. I found myself always wearing Fig, and so when I heard that Fig was for sale, I snatched it up, and so today I've sort of relaunched it. We've got our website, we sell to many, many stores. I'm wearing it, of course. And it feels very in keeping. My house, Grey Gardens, Fig with its sort of bold patterns and prints and colors. It all kind of connects in my mind. But I love fashion and beauty and home and anything that has to do with, style and design. So it's very fitting for me. And I think I grew up with, my mother's still alive, but a very, stylish mother who loved to shop. And I'm certainly just like her, I hope. And, and I love to entertain. So having a house like this where I can have my friends all the time is just, a dream come true. So whereas in the entry, I have the pink and I have the blue Murano glass collections, here's where I keep my yellow one. So I kind of do it by color, by room. So this room is my yellow and green moment. When we studied images of this house, of which we were lucky, there are so many, we noticed that at one point, this room was almost a three-walled room. It really didn't have a wall here. And that was so stunning. And then we saw as it was renovated that, yes, there were these doors, but that they almost completely opened. So we wanted to do the same. So we created these extra, extra large sliding doors. So the room can be completely closed up, but also gets completely opened. Which is just a really beautiful way to look at the gardens and to be in this room on the right when the temperature's right. Just the breeze comes in, the fountain is often on, butterflies, birds, the wafting, scent of the fresh flowers. It's very magical. So from here we can actually go straight outside. So this is probably the most famous gardens at our house, and you know, not to be obnoxious, but probably one of the more famous gardens in the world. This is the walled gardens. They built walls here we're basically right on the ocean here. So the walls are to protect the flowers from the ocean and from that harsh wind and the salt air. And we you know, completely revitalized this garden area. We, you know, restored the walls, built all these pathways. We restored the pergola. What you're seeing there is sadly the last of the wisteria. Wisteria kind of comes very quickly early in the season and then leaves us, but that was dripping in purple wisteria. And what I adore about this garden is that it comes out in levels. So one week it's one flower, the next week those flowers are gone and it's a new flower. So right now we're all about our peonies, our foxgloves, our roses are in, which you'll see over there, just crawling on the, you know, with the ivy on the walls. This is a vintage fountain that we found and installed here. Again, the pergola, which, you know, actually served as a chuppah when my husband and I got married at the house. You know, old Anglo-Indian furnishings, and a place where I also sometimes throw little lunches. So again, the walled garden in you know, all of its sort of splendor. And it always reminded me of a secret garden because it's got these little doors and you don't know what's on the other side. We painted them, we created this color blue and we call it Grey Gardens Blue. And you'll see it throughout throughout the outside of the house. We used it a lot. I'm taking you through here. This is a fun moment. First this is a peony garden. It stretches all the way around this perimeter and goes all the way down there. You see all the peonies. It's sadly peonies also, they're in and they're out. This is the original thatched hut. I think it was sort of for garden tools originally. We actually had to find a roof thatcher, which isn't easy to find in the United States. And he repaired the roof for us. And my friend Jonathan Adler, if you peek in here, it's quite interesting. He created this custom tile design for me inside of this hut, which is all about Little and Big Edie, sort of a surreal take on Little and Big Edie. So this is a custom tile installation that he did in the original hut. For fans of the documentary, I always like to show people that we kept where they buried their dog, and it's quite an epitaph. I hope someone says something that's nice about me when I die. So as you can see, it's from 1942. We completely took the landscaping from the top. We tried again to study the original landscape plans and be semi-faithful, semi-not. I had always wanted to have a round pool. It was inspired by the movie producer Robert Evans's pool at his famous house in Bel Air. The house is called Woodlands, and there are many shots of him on phone calls sitting by his round pool with his butler standing around, and I always thought it was just the height of glamour. We built this sort of pool / tennis house. It was all done by Accents of France because they just do the most beautiful treillage work. They did all the treillage work at the Ritz Hotel in Paris. So, you know, we designed it and they built it like this. The inside of it is meant to almost look very whimsical, like a circus tent. It was all hand painted up to the ceiling. It's a true hangout. I would say that I didn't envision this, but my 20-something-year-old kids, this is where all their parties happen. This is sort of what rocks until about 3 or 4 in the morning on most summer nights. They're in the pool, they're on the court, they're hanging here. We even have a little kitchen bar that works with it. The tennis court was here, but we completely redid it in grass because we thought that felt more beautiful, more in keeping with the property. So we've got this grass tennis court, and then we continued and had Accents of France make a treillage backboard because I just thought a backboard would be kind of ugly, a traditional one here, and it's on the side of the garage that we built. And ultimately, the fencing around the tennis court will look like it's all made of privet, but it just takes a long time for that kind of thing to grow in, and we've only been at the house, this is our 5th summer. So that's you know, that's happening, but it's not quite there yet. Explain. Blue and white is really the theme of the house. It's two of my favorite colors, and Grey Gardens blue, as I said, is how we painted almost every gate and door in the exterior. And we even had all of our awnings custom done in blue and white for the house. I'll take you to the back patio later. This is something about the house that I absolutely adore, is the kitchen garden. We are a little early in the season, but as the season develops, we grow all of our vegetables in this garden. You know, everything from eggplants, beets, cauliflower, broccoli, our own tomatoes, everything comes right from here. All of our own lettuces. They're just not quite, they're not grown in yet, and it's not quite done yet. But it will be, and we will be eating from it. We created all of this. I think there was a kitchen garden here at some point, but not at this level. This walkway, also done by us. The idea behind it was that it would be a alley of lindens, and it's sort of becoming that with all the hostas and the foxgloves, but an alley of lindens that leads to what I call the Indian garden. So I'll just take you along with me. There's always a lot of garden work being done at Grey Gardens, so you'll excuse the sort of hoses and all of that. All the lilacs are in season right now, and you can just smell the lilac. This garden was inspired by this pair of doors. I found this pair of old Indian palace doors at John Darien in New York City, and we decided to put them here and let them kind of inform the rest of this garden. So what we did is we commissioned out of India somebody to create all of this marble, the marble planters, the marble fountain, the marble furniture, and then we did, you know, all of these it's a very manicured garden, whereas the walled garden is a very kind of wild English garden. This is a very manicured garden, as you can see. And this is another place, like there's so many different areas, which is fun for me. Like sometimes I'll throw a luncheon or a dinner right here. And as I said, we had all of our awnings created for the house. So this is just, again, another fun moment, because I just wanted things to feel kind of surprising, yet I think in keeping. This leads right to the indoor dining room. So when the weather's good and we're eating inside, often the French doors are open and you can feel this garden, which used to have nothing here. When we first bought the house, this was just sort of dead land, and I wanted to make sure that when we were eating in the inside dining room that there was a beautiful vista as well. And so that's what this garden is. Entertaining is very important to me. So my indoor dining room, my outdoor dining rooms, they all had to be kind of perfect for me. The first thing I did is I got somebody I'm a huge fan of Vladimir Kanevsky, to make me all of these porcelain flowers for the house, and he worked with my landscape designer, and he knows, so that he was using the exact flowers that do exist in the gardens of Grey Gardens. So these were all custom for the house, even the little cauliflowers, everything custom, everything clustered here. The original fireplace, again, Thanksgiving, we always have a fire going. We do a big Thanksgiving here. I covered the walls in turquoise silk, and even the ceiling as well, because I love covering ceilings. You'll see that throughout the house as well. And then we had a painter paint all of the molding beneath in this faux tortoise finish. And then of course, there's all this drapery work. The drapery actually continues here. You know, I thought about putting a pair of doors here, you know, either French doors or sliding doors, but then I realized I like the whole house to be open. I want to feel light coming from every single direction, so I didn't even want to close this off. So that was a decision I made. This is kind of cool. This pair of cabinets, this and this one here, they match. These are original to the house. We restored them, but these were here from the Big Edie and Little Edie days and before that. I am a huge fan of circular dining tables. It's my favorite because it lends itself to one conversation, and I don't like entertaining in a group that's bigger than 10, and I like it around a round table. So this was quite deliberate. This table does get bigger. It can be a very big oval for family holidays like Thanksgiving that we do here, but generally speaking, when we're inside. And usually we're outside, but when we're inside, we're sitting at this round table in a small group of us. I have 3 dogs. They're not all represented there because some of those, they're not here this morning because they would have been too wild. But my dog, Betty, my late dog, Rosie, and Betty is a golden doodle, and we have Betty, we have a Frenchie named Scotty, and we also have a British cream golden retriever named Barney. So we are dog people. So moving on, another detail that we did actually before we move on, you'll see it throughout the house, is even though all of the electricity, everything about this house is new, like all the guts are new, we wanted to keep that sort of old world air to the house. So we used these type of light switches that you would have seen, you know, that are more traditional than just a regular modern switch. So these turn the lights on and off, and we use them everywhere, the brass plated ones. Okay, so this is the original butler's pantry. We restored all the cabinetry and had custom hardware made for it. This is obviously our bar. Truthfully, I barely drink, but all our friends do, and my children certainly do. They're in their 20s, don't get worried. But I do collect barware. So as you can see, I collect a lot of this mid-century modern gilded barware. This is more of my milk glass collection, the French, I think it's called Porchot. More things I've collected over the years are all displayed here. And then Vladimir had made me these huge other cabbages, and I have them up top. Of course, I'm born and bred New Yorker, so can't go without my New York Post. Everything has to be logoed, so our cocktail napkins are as well. I collected these shell plates and thought they'd be fun to put on the walls. The walls are lacquered, another shade of blue. Blue is a huge theme in this house. I wanted it to be very rich. It's combined with one of my favorite Schumacher prints. Very happy, very fun. And as you can see, I even papered the ceiling because I like wallpaper. I always like to consider every detail. And I don't think ceilings should be left bare. So this is the original butler's pantry, and we use it now as a bar and a place to store all my plate collections and my glass collections. And so I have so many different plates. Just so you know what's behind things, I always like to put a display plate in front so I know what's behind it. Love these. I am obsessively collecting little salt and pepper cellars because I like people to have them right in front of them when I entertain. So a bunch of silver ones, a bunch of different ceramic ones, a way to quickly fill them. It's a lot, and all of these cabinets are filled with more of this type of thing. We completely created this kitchen. This was where the kitchen was, but it was 2 kitchens. Back then, believe it or not, this is going to sound so politically incorrect, but there was sort of family kitchen, and then behind it, I think, is what they would call a servant's kitchen. So it was 2 smaller kitchens that we made into one big one. I knew how much time we were going to spend in the kitchen, so I wanted it to be a bright white and blue, of course, because I love blue, happy room where we could just all hang out. So whether we're sitting at the island, whether we're sitting around this table, you know, we're always kind of here. Even I sometimes entertain and we sit here and we just set up all the food right here like a buffet, and people just help themselves. I'm crazy about plates, so I had this big collection of Ginori plates that I also bought at the Ginori shop in Milan when I was last there. So I created this, I guess I'd call it almost a hutch, so that it could store all of them. And we use them, but we also display them. Wallpaper, which with the matching fabric as a drapery, we created this sort of area here. It didn't exist, the room stopped, and we sort of bumped it out so that we could really feel the kitchen garden and just the land in general, the outside when we're sitting here at this table. And what's nice is when you're cooking, you could just go right outside and grab whatever herbs or whatever vegetables or lettuce, whatever you need right there, and bring it right back into the kitchen. So this is a room that we just live in. These are those sewn out of Britain chairs that we had painted this custom blue color to match the wallpaper and the fabric. You know, we are all about food at my house. There's one thing that if you come for dinner, you will not leave hungry. I am like all about abbondanza. And so I keep out these snack jars during the day. I'm very lucky. People always ask, like, how do you keep these here and not eat all of them? Snacks like this do not tempt me. They're just not my thing, but they are so many of our friends' thing. My children love them, their friends love them. And I really wanted to create a house that felt a little bit like, you know, a little honeypot where all the kids would want to be. Because it's funny, when your kids are younger, you're kind of going out of your mind. And then when your kids are older, you'll do anything to have them around you. So I love having the kids here. And so I do all these things to make it very conducive. So these are our candy jars, our snack jars. I like to be super organized. So this is how I keep sort of wine and water glasses separate. I see some must be in the dishwasher. But you know, that's behind here is all of that. I keep collections of napkins, you know, so many of them, white ones, colorful ones, it's here, blue and white ones, because I'm crazy when it comes to tablescaping and table setting, so I just want to have all the stuff right at my fingertips. Every bathroom is considered, even the one off of the kitchen, with this, you know, kind of vine leaf wallpaper and a fun little ceiling sconce that I found. Everything, I like everything to be cute looking. This is the flower room, because of course when you have gardens you have to have a flower room. So as you can see, we do a lot of arranging in here. We've got the deep sink for when we bring in the flowers, and just, you know, crazy amounts of vases everywhere. Because this house is very much a flower house. I can quickly show you, if you want, that it might be messy, but I keep a lot more of the candles and the things I use on my tables when I set them in here. So this is where we do all of our summer entertaining. Like, this is set for dinner tonight. This is actually our brand new fig linens, which I'm really excited about, because I'm all about different linens every night. These are our new lamp shades that go on top of the, you know, self-lighting recharging lights, so love those, all fig. So this is the way I would set up for like an evening. This is for friends that are coming over later for dinner. I have it all set up. Weather permitting, we'll hang out over here, you know, have a few drinks before dinner, walk over to the table. I have fun when I'm setting my table, so I just like to mix things up. This is a very matchy table, but you'll often see me with a tablecloth that has nothing to do with the napkins I use. I always entertain as a buffet, so I like to set out big plates and then just tons of food. I'll usually take those blue chinoiserie items off of those two tables, and I'll put food there, and maybe I'll take that round table that's down there and I'll pull it up here and I'll put more food on that, and people can just help themselves. And I just have fun with tablescaping. I'm always doing different colors. Like, I love the blue and white with the pinkish beige. I love the bamboo silverware. Just different colors, different prints, different patterns. I want my tables to look very unexpected. I found these, they're kind of getting beat up, which I love, also at Arjuman's World in Milan, and I brought them back and we wired them and hung them to light this table at night. These are House of Jansen. He was a well-known decorator. Vintage outdoor chairs. I've got tons of them, so I can make this table as big or as small as I want, depending on how many I'm having for dinner. So let's go upstairs now and I can give you a little peek of all our bedrooms. So this is actually the original landing. One of the things that I love most about this house is I don't often see a second floor landing that's done this way, sort of a rectangle around the staircase. I find it very beautifully laid out. As I mentioned, I got many different artists to give me their interpretation of Little Edie and Big Edie. So these were done by Luke Edward Hall, and you'll see like little cats, little nods to Little Edie and Big Edie. Mark Gadian, this is Big Edie. He did this paper mache, and he also did Little Edie. So we tried wherever we could to nod to the history of this house. I think that's important. So this is the primary bedroom. This is where my husband and I sleep. Like so much about this house, I really wanted the feel of the gardens, which the house is so famous for, to be felt throughout the house, particularly on the inside. So, we picked this paper with these beautiful flowers, and we really just wrapped the room in it. That was my vision, that the room should be completely wrapped in it, from the drapery to the ceiling to the walls. The bed is custom. We even painted the motif and the colors onto our end tables. And in the entry of the room, we painted it onto this chest of drawers and created this little circus tent feeling in the entry. My collection of glass continues up here, this time in green. So this is all this, Italian Murano glass, but green for this bedroom. The fireplace works. We restored that completely. So this is a seating area we created, just a place to hang out in the bedroom, plop down. I also love that from these windows you see the walled garden. In this room you kind of have views everywhere. So if you look straight ahead from my bed, I see the walled garden and the pergola. But if I walk over to the side where we restored this original balcony, I see the pool house, and then I see all the way to the beach. It's not as clear of a day today as we'd like it to be, but you really do. This house, in fact, was on the beach. It's steps from the beach. Sadly, the Beals at some point had to sell off their one little parcel that was on the beach because they ran into hard times, to say the least. But this house basically borders the beach, and you really feel it up here, and you feel Georgica Pond, which is such a beautiful vista. So this is my husband's office. So you're thinking, what's interesting about that? Well, not much, except that this is the room that the entire documentary Grey Gardens was filmed in. So if you are a fan of that film, you know that, and it's shocking to people when they come here because it's actually a very small room. So this movie, basically, there were two twin beds, one here and one there. And Big Edie slept in one, and Little Edie was often in the other, and the Maisels brothers stood in that corner, and they filmed the entire thing. This is where they famously ate corn and cat food. Sadly, because this was one of the only rooms that was available to them, because so many had either been burnt in the fire or taken over by raccoons and animals. I mean, the house was, about to be condemned. So this was the room. And since it was known as the yellow bedroom, in order to be respectful to that, we chose a shade of yellow, and we did the whole thing in sort of this, more of this marigold mustardy yellow. But this is the very, very famous, iconic yellow bedroom. So when people come to see the house, this is the room that they most want to see and that they are most shocked by, because the room appears much bigger in the documentary. My husband uses this as his desk, but also in the documentary there is a famous scene in the dining room. That seems to be another room that was available to them, sort of. It's a mess. This was their dining table. This was in the house when we purchased it, so we refurbished it, and my husband uses it now as his desk. So this was the infamous Grey Gardens attic. It was basically inaccessible. I think you kind of like opened up one of those trap ceilings and a ladder fell down. It was referred to all over the documentary as infested with raccoons. You couldn't really be up here. But we restored it completely. We connected it to the house with a proper staircase. We tried to make it, I think, kind of glorious, like it's this green and white moment, to feel like a garden with the hand-painted walls. We kept the eaves of the roof exactly as they were, first of all, because we wouldn't be allowed not to, but I also think it's pretty. And I just kind of took the idea of green and white and went wild with it. So we're standing here, and then if we walk, there are some really pretty guest rooms, and it's kind of become like a favorite place for guests to sleep, actually. This attic bedroom might be my favorite bedroom in the whole house. I started with the idea that I love this venison wallpaper. I'm a huge fan of it. They made it for me in this apple green, and we blew up the scale, and then just continued the theme from there. But I liked, signature for me, I wrapped the room in this wallpaper and just went nuts with it, and with green and white as a theme, even down to green and white candies. Every bedroom has candies that correspond color-wise. And some guest amenities, because I like when friends are staying here for it to feel like a hotel. I want all the amenities there. I want them to be able to see the Wi-Fi password right away, to understand how the television works, every little thing, even down to custom suitcase stands for them. So that's kind of the way I run my houses. So call it crazy. And so this would be an example. So now we're going down to the basement. What's interesting about the basement is this house had no basement. We actually were able to lift up the house, dig out the entire footprint of the house, and create a full floor basement. So we were able to put, you know, some of the ugly stuff, like the mechanicals, some of the necessary stuff, like a gym, a laundry room, a wine room, extra storage, some bedrooms. But one of the things that I think is most fun on this level is the screening room that we created. I knew I wanted to have a screening room. I knew the kids loved a screening room. I know we'd have fun in a screening room, but I didn't want it to look like a screening room because that's kind of tacky to me. I wanted it to look just like a living room. So I think we did a good job. We created this sort of Moroccan fantasy, I call it. You would never know it's a screening room, but it functions really well. Like these chairs are so comfortable. You just lie back. And this is actually, as you can see, there's a projector and the screen comes right down from the ceiling. So when it's not in use, it's just another room to hang out in. I think doesn't feel like a screening room, and that's what I love about it. So this is sort of, as I said, my Moroccan fantasy screening room. You know, so many people think that I bought this house because it's Grey Gardens. And sure, the history is incredible, and the amount of people that have lived in or visited this house is very, very cool. But really, what I love about this house is it is so reminiscent to me of the houses that I knew growing up. This is the East Hampton of my childhood that is mostly gone. My family's weekend house was just around the corner on Lily Pond Lane. And this is what all the houses look like. They were these big, shingled, gorgeous, sprawling summer cottages that had been around since the 1800s. But sadly, since then, and again, you know, that's whatever anyone wants to do, but most of them have been torn down and replaced with these sort of newer, sort of McMansions, drop from the sky houses. And this was a house that still retained its original look and feel, hadn't been destroyed, is in the most, in my mind, perfect location in East Hampton, my favorite part of East Hampton, the Georgica area, where I grew up, so it's just what's most familiar to me. So really, I bought this house because I loved the house itself more than what the house represented. Like, I like what the house represents, but I love what the house is. And when you're in this house, and it's really hard to explain, you almost feel removed. Like, you feel like you're in this magical garden and you don't even know where you are. You don't feel the other houses. You don't feel the hustle and bustle that has become the Hamptons. You just feel this serene tranquility of the gardens and the old style architecture of this house, which I think is very beautiful.
Hello, Homeworthy. I'm Amanda.
Hello, I'm Muriel. How are you?
Welcome to my home in Southampton. Please come in. I'm Amanda Ross Bacon. I have a fashion brand called A Ross Girl. I started 10 years ago, and I'm here with Muriel Brandolini.
Hi, I'm Muriel Brandolini, an interior designer, and my very good friend is Amanda Ross Bacon.
I live here with my husband and his kids, and we've been here for 10 to 12 years. The house has a beautiful history. It was built for the William Merritt Chase artists. It was their school, and it has a lot of beautiful history. My husband bought the house before we met from a previous owner who put a lot of love into this house, expanding it and doing the garden with Edwina von Gaal. Muriel and I knew each other in New York over the years, and we became very good friends as we lived very close to one another in the Hamptons. During COVID and 2020, we spent a lot of time together outdoors. We started talking about the house. She loves the house. And one conversation after another led to us working together. And I'm very grateful. She's created this magic here that makes the house sing.
This house came along not as a client project, but as a friendship. Amanda and I spent basically every other day exercising in our tennis court during COVID. And this is how we bound together. And we saw each other every 2 days. And slowly and slowly, I enter her home, which I really love. The bone of the house are magical. They are just a cozy house, but the inside was not done. And I wanted to help Amanda and not have her as a client, help her as a friend, because Amanda had a background of being a stylist, so I knew she could do it. So basically, like Thelma and Louise, but not with the ending, we decided to go along and try to do it together. And I taught Amanda to be able to trust herself in the decisions that I was giving her to have. So it was a collaboration which was really fun. And we had a lot of fun together.
Welcome to our living room. This is a very special room. It's part of the original house. When I moved in here, there was a pool table in the center of this room, and the bar was over here.
So basically, yes, the sofa was very, very wrong. And Amanda was so sad, but that she was led to error. This is when I started, beside our friendship, which got close during COVID, started to help her. I used actually the fabric that was existing in the old sofa. I recycled it and I created a new sofa. And from there, I created the heart of the home, which was really the heart, because I love symmetry. In front of the fireplace with a little table and some side a banquette to close this living room to coziness and warmth, and where you can really attend and host guests and see them and connect with them at every corner from wherever you are seated, which is very important and makes the ambience intimate and the connection to be what it should be. Then I decided, Zach, I love birds, so
taxidermy and birds.
Exactly. So I decided I'd look around. It was a lot of birds around, and I thought about the Hitchcock movie Birdie. So it was never enough. So I wanted density. So Amanda looked for all the birds and bought more of it. And here it is. You should have a tour of it. And this is created the room. Instead of painting, instead of the classic things that you will see, this is at the end a country house. This is the mishmash of everything we can find. The soul of the Zach who loved his bird. The intimacy of Amanda, the texture and the layers that she had created when she was a fashion stylist, and she was extremely good at it. So I projected it into the home where she learned that it was okay to mix and match, etc. And then we went antiquing fabric. We have some pillows which are all made of antique fabric. And then I created those blinds myself, which I don't create blind like this in bamboo, but created this geometry on the window. So I took the grade of the glass and I translated it into the blind. And here, if you look at the blind is made of grid, blue and straw and green square.
Coming in, this is the front door. When you come in here, the idea is to come straight to the bar, which is this room here we call Bar and Books, where we sit and read and have an evening cocktail. This is a very cozy, wonderful little space.
This room was one of the last that I helped you with because it was unbalanced. It was all white. I did those cushions with vintage fabric, but then it was still a bit not at the weight of the rest of the house in the room in the house. So I say, okay, let's do a pink stripe. If you see this bookshelf who was there, is in a lime green, and then I bordered it with baby pink. I mean, in a very masculine room with heads of
taxidermy mats.
Yes, and then a very strong, shabby
carpenter table.
I balance the softness of the baby pink and the strengths of the carpenter's table.
One of my favorite things about this room that grounds it is this beautiful rug from Italy, from Caterina Frongio, that we found at Chiarostella.
In
Muriel
Venice.
found in Venice.
Yep, it's a child. It's kind of a drawing of a child. It could have been done by a child. It's so nice. It's a needlepoint, right?
What's special is the alchemy of the mix. Muriel is so talented with this. This lamp is by designer Rodman Premack and Ago Projects, based in Mexico City.
So I went to see my daughter in Mexico City, and I went to see gallery, etc. And I bumped into this lamp, and I immediately took a picture, sent it to Amanda, said, we buy it. And in general, when I buy something, I don't say I'm going to buy it to put it somewhere, unless it is a coffee table. But accessory, which I call lamp accessory, are impulsive. Most of like this one was impulsive. It was just pretty, and we are going to find a place for it, a home for it. And this is how the intimacy of the house and the house personality come about when you just buy with your guts and you buy an object that you simply love. And when you love that object, there is always room for it. You will place it somewhere. And the accident firmed the design on being the special one, I would say. So this lamp brings this room to be special because it's awkward. A lamp is made in Mexico, really colorful. Those chairs belong from the past owner. Reupholstered with some Viennese 1905 antique fabrics. This rug was found in Venice, but made in south of Italy. Everything seemed always to be an accident. And I think that even when I painted this bookshelf, lime green with baby pink, I didn't even think, I'm just thinking about now that actually the outdoor living room is baby pink. But I didn't put the two together then. And things happen like that in my decoration most of the time. Accident makes the space a unique one.
Now we'd love to show you the dining room. Come with us. Come into our dining room. This is one of the original rooms in the house, and it was actually the kitchen. So when the previous owner added the addition, which you'll see in the kitchen, this became somewhat of a gallery. When we got the house, it had a banquette here with a long bench, and it was a little challenging how to place the table, what kind of table, and Muriel had the genius idea to put it sort of kitty corner this way so that your eye traveled to the outdoors. And then she had the genius idea of creating a bit of a botanical garden here. So we bought all of these little, I don't know what you call them. Sillettes. Yeah. And then bought the birds in Paris, add the orchid, this tablecloth. It bring there's a perfect with the paintings symmetry between masculine and feminine.
This was a challenging room because, as you can see, there is absolutely no corner, and it is a passageway to the most important room of the house, a kitchen. So I created the rug situation too. I created a kind of outdoor mat sewn together with different pattern.
Here we have the fireplace in our dining room, which is unique in the tile and the color. And I was thinking to change it. And the first thing Muriel said to me was, absolutely not, do not change the tiles. We have them here in the living room, upstairs in our bedroom, and in my husband's office.
So what do you make with a room which is a knockout room? You make it dark, and you cover the most. You don't push out this room to be something. You try to bury him in darkness. So it becomes a hole, and what you do is you decorate that kind of box with a life, which we did with the ferns, the orchids, the birds, the light, and the movement in the walls. So this is like a basically you are entering a jewel box that I created with dark color. I could not have done it with white because white usually will require more light, brightness, and you would put white in a box which is perfect. This is an orchid box. So you don't want to show and emphasize the wrongness of the room or the awkwardness.
I think color is one of the hardest. Paint and color is, to me, the hardest part of this whole project. And this is an art and a talent that's on a level that I've never seen anywhere else. So there is a bit of magic and mystery to how you put a color together. Watching her in action is a lot of fun. Okay, let's head to the sunroom. Follow us. I think we both incorporate our stylist background because we think in layers, and we like looking at a painting or making a painting. You step back for context, you think about it, then you go back and you add something. I love Muriel's eye. I spent a lot of time in her home, and I'm an aesthetic person, and I was sitting in my house thinking, what could I do to change it? And this beautiful relationship turned into a working relationship, which brought a harmony and a beauty to this house. I literally walk around the house every day happy. I think, oh, it's so pretty, and there's so many little secret corners, and you will see when you come through the house.
For me, it was I was a stylist when I was much younger, and it's by accident designer. And it is, like Amanda said, about layers and layers of things. I mean, I didn't have the means to just go around and buy and everything. I just had to do with what I had. And basically, it was the beginning of a collection of fabric and textiles that I always have loved. And everything, mostly, it have put my mind to things that everything is possible if you dare. This is a room that I took so much pleasure to do. I saw it is, again, a very weird room because it's super narrow and you have a stairs there. I mean, it is like a greenhouse. What can you do in this room? Luckily, we found a tiny and narrow table, and I wanted, so here again, I put my blind and I embrace the ivy of the window, inside, outside. And I asked Marie-Christophe to create this chandelier made in wood beads. And we found those chairs at the sale of Hubert de Givenchy. And we just didn't do anything about it, just bought it, kept it the same way. I added some 1900 fabric, Viennoise, and I did little skirt to make it a little cute. And we took some leftover fabric and we did some découpé to add it to the seat. Basically, everything is old and is a patchwork and adding on. This room for me is extremely cozy. If it was my house, I would have some tete-a-tete dinner with my husband. It's so romantic. I mean, this room is
You can see the ivy growing, the English ivy from outdoors, which really cocoons you in here.
This is a table set for indulgence. Cookie, sweet, sugar, fruits.
Any time of day.
You can just pop on and have a brownie and admire the beautiful cut rose from Amanda Garden that she all did it on herself. And have
all the
fancy.
Flowers in the house are from our garden. In every room, there's something from my great-grandmother or my grandmother. These were from my great-grandmother. I'm not sure they work so well, but they're charming.
They're pretty. They're sunflowers.
My great-grandmother came from Russia, and she was an artist, and her husband was an artist. He realized he wasn't going to support a family being an artist, so he ended up in the meat industry. But one day she was painting, because she took art classes, and she was painting nudes, and her husband came home and said, absolutely not, and made her do botanicals. And now everyone in the family, and there are lots of girls, we all have some of her botanicals, some of which are upstairs. I think this room is so special because it's very connected to the house, yet it's very private. So while the hustle and bustle of the house and the kids or people coming and going, you can kind of hang out here and sort of no one knows where you are. All right, now follow us into the kitchen. Here we are in the kitchen. We have lots of different fabrics together, which make it a very interesting an artisanal feeling. There's whimsical from my friend Constantine Kekanius. There's plates from 1929, I think. They're Tiffany's. They were my great-grandmother's. There are 12, and actually my sister, and I have a twin sister, and we fought over who was going to get them, and then we decided, okay, we'll split them. And I was so afraid someone would break them, so they're now on the wall. The background, these cushions from Decor Bar, also our good friend Natalie. We have flowers on the tablecloth, flowers on the cushion, flowers on the glasses. These are sort of fun bar from the 60s, and the flowers from the outdoors. Even the flowers on the plates from Carolina Irving. We're next to the island. Everything happens on the island. There's the stove. This countertop serves as a little farm stand with all of our collectibles. The herbs, tomatoes from the garden, the fruits from the farm stands, lemons, watermelon, and this is where we cook and nurture the people in our home. I'm starting to cook, and I'm learning a lot from my friend Muriel because she's an excellent cook.
She does it very well now. If you look at her Instagram, she is so proud of her cooking and table settings that she doesn't even call me, am I right? In the past, she used to. So, I mean, we went very far. She does it all by herself and perfectly well. And the cooking is really getting there.
The cooking is getting there. Follow us into the TV room. This is the heart of the home. This is where we spend a lot of time. As you can see, it's a very indoor-outdoor room, very masculine. Look at the fireplace. This is part of the expansion, and this was all reclaimed chestnut wood. Muriel, when we started working together, immediately saw the addition of femininity while not taking away the beauty of the wood. So these banquettes were here, but she put her fabric, this beautiful green and yellow subtle flower fabric. Sunflower, and you just sink in. This is my favorite place to watch TV and to read.
And here my little softness and femininity came around the ruffles of the curtains among all this wood.
One of the first things that Muriel did in this room was to move the couch forward. So you had two portions of the room that you were using. If you can see from this chair, these areas here are so beautiful. Nobody was looking at them because the energy went towards the fireplace and the TV. But now you can sit here, have a drink at our little mini bar, and look at the beautiful bookcases.
And also entertain you who is cooking on your stove while you're getting dinner ready. So we bought some lamp who had no shade, which is often what happened. But I went through my shelf in my office and found some leftover curtains that I was making for client decades ago and created some lampshade. I didn't have enough fabric, so I just created a little skirt and put some applique in raffia and use a little bit here. She was really a lucky girl because she got the best out of me.
These are our dahlias. This one is gigantic. It's very new. We just found it yesterday. So what's exciting in a cutting garden is Muriel came the other day and said, I didn't see that, but literally they pop day to day, and it's the most exciting to wake up, have your coffee, and think, oh, I'm going to go cut some fresh flowers, and every day there's something new popping in the garden. Yes, these are all from outside. Now we're going upstairs to the private bedrooms. So the primary bedroom is part of the new addition, and it's really spacious and private for me and my husband. This is probably the only room that we left white.
So here, this room is made of a lot of banquettes with window where you can sit and dream at looking outside, as you can see. And all of it is my fabrics. This room is entirely done with my fabrics that you can find at Holland and Cherry. And that was a new collection that Amanda was lucky enough to get before it hit the shelf.
It's a real mix of geometry, which is the symmetry of the outside, because the garden is quite geometric. So it's a mix of shapes here. And this is one of Muriel's older tables, which I fell in love with and purchased. There are two of them. And here we have the bedroom.
Oh, we add some color to it. We made some nook again. There's full of nook in this house.
Full of little nooks.
Nooks and nooks and nooks. Look at this tiny window with some ivy outside. And here I put a fern with a planter. What Amanda had was basically a bed. And because of all those curves that are in this house, I decided to do a headboard with curve as well. And
here you can see the wisteria. This is the top of the pergola with the dining terrace below it.
This is such a beautiful, cozy room and different. The architecture in itself of this house is amazing.
It's very
I think
quiet.
This is why I fell in love. Well, it's not because of our friendship. It's just a house and the garden. Anyway, and then, as I'm a person of abundance, I love not a little bed, not a little flower, a lot of everything. I created even sheets for Amanda with full of flowers that I asked my friend at Vis-a-Vis to do. And this is her sheet was full of flower. This house is made with so much love, details, all because of her.
Our friendship.
Yes, and look at the little kitschy scallopy lampshade that we had made with my fabric as well. But to take the curve of the headboard and the curve here, scallopy. Well, I feel that she's very coquette, my girlfriend here. She's going to deny it, but she is. So, and very feminine. I mean, the idea of taking a bath here with a plant, with the ivy back there, with a dim light, and having here, if you turn around, a banquette and speak to her husband about it, there is a full of charm, romanticism, and sexiness to it. And the bathroom is very important for me, even if I didn't do anything to it besides the shade, is a place where you create yourself to become beautiful. First of all, you take your time to take care of you, look at your skin, your face, and then you make up what you want out of you. You can look, get some black eye or some pink eyes if you feel. Is a place of preparation, is a body kitchen.
Body kitchen.
It's a body kitchen.
This is the room that has my great-grandmother's illustrations. You can see on the wall behind the bed and over here. It's a sea of geometry. I love the fabric on the bed, on the headboard. It looks like it's part of the wall, the curtain, the Roman shades, the cushions here. This was actually my great-grandmother's as well. She was 6 feet tall, so we always thought it was interesting that her rocking chair was so small, but she seemed to like it.
Taking whatever is there, the grandmother, I don't know what is this rocking chair came from, but we just, and then the chinoiserie over here with the mirrors and pipe. And again,
Each room has its own very special reading room, reading nook. And I love the mix of the period of this sort of American colonial mirror.
So another room, this is called the Old Master. Where did I find this tapestry? In Mexico.
In Mexico.
This one was in Mexico. And this is a gift that I gave to, I made for my
Birthday.
one of my birthday and gifted to every one of my guests, which one Amanda was one of them, when they left Vietnam to go back to America on the plane to have a cozy and downy pillow, hand embroidered. And each and every one of them was a different design.
This is a very special little room. You can watch a movie, another place to read a book and dream.
I know, but this is such a pretty room.
Oh, and then we added the layers of color by mixing the fun yellow with the funny green and the sort of teal blue on the door.
And this is my signature chairs that she inherited, because everything with Amanda was a lot of luck. She got a lot of luck going on for her life. And look at those
flowers
roses
from the garden.
Yeah, I know. They should have been for me.
I
those.
bought these in Detroit at MoCAD.
It's pretty.
It was a local artist, and
It's
they
so
traveled
charming.
with me to a few houses, and I love them. Welcome to my garden. Follow me. The garden was conceived by Edwina von Gaal with the previous owner, Tim O'Brien. He spent years here putting his love and attention and creating an environment that was transportive, almost to mimic Provence. So you drive up here and you're in another world. So all the stone was brought in, pergolas. It was very Europe, with Europe in mind. Please find these are PG hydrangea trees that anchor the garden between the house and the pool. We have some Australian sage, roses. The house is filled with boxwoods and privets. This is quite an interesting detail. The ship vibe of the underhang, which goes from one side of the garden to the other. So we have 3 pergolas filled with wisteria. Here on the dining by the pool. Follow me to the pool. Underneath the pool pergola, we have some vintage Muriel Brandolini little bed rolls on our chaises, and some vintage Muriel Brandolini sliding chairs. When I got here 10 years ago, there were sort of very Provençal kind of spruce tree, forested big trees that weren't really working. So we put in these beautiful crepe myrtles. Nature, things die, you put new things, they don't get along if they're connected to an area where the growth interacts with another growth. So you have to pick foliage and trees that work next to one another. We buy these ferns every year. I love this to cover this is behind is the laundry area. We do get some peonies in here, but the peony garden is really on the other side. We're leading now to the front of the house, where you can see more PG hydrangea bushes, which are almost like trees. When we built these 10, 12 years ago, they were tiny little bushes. You can see all around here. Follow me through this wonderful archway. There are little moments of antiquity mixed with fern next to the privet. I love the different layers of the different foliages together. We added this beautiful rounded couch we found in Connecticut, and I worked with Rami, Gardens by Rami, to plant the terrace and the cutting garden. I like to mix different heights of leaves and different, this is herbs, this is gardenia, this is freesia, so different smells. We have lemon, verbena, and you just bring a new aroma a mix of aromas, and it makes you dream. It's dreamy here. I think we had to replace these with boxwood because when I got here, there were these little kind of hydrangea bushes, but they weren't doing well. So I've learned so much in the last 10 years. When I got here, someone said, "How are all your boxwoods?" Because this garden is famous for boxwoods. And I said, "What's a boxwood?" That was 10 years ago. So we had a cutting garden on one side of the house. It wasn't working as well. We wanted to expand it, and Rami, who we work with, thought to come down here. So this is a work in progress. And I had seen this house in East Hampton by this designer, and he had the most incredible cutting garden, which was the inspiration for this one. And these sort of grasses and Queen Anne's lace, and so we've tried to recreate that here. I designed the garden with Rami based on all the types of flowers that I love. So you see this wall, which is empty here. This is where we had all the Casablanca lilies. This is Gomphrena. We have cosmos. We have roses, climbing, and bushes. And then I'm crazy about dahlias. So we have all different sorts of dahlias. I could never remember the names, but you can tell that I love pink. Pinks, purples. I love this one that has the inside yellow with the pink, magenta, and different sizes. I love the idea of mixing all the different sizes.
Home means to me everything. I mean, home is a cocoon, home is where you nurture, home is your comfort, home is your security. Home is where you can explore and do anything you want and allow yourself to do mistake. Is your home.
I feel the home is a place of sanctuary, security, privacy, intimacy, pleasure, and functionality. And I think on that note, what's so interesting and why Muriel is so talented is because she marries beauty, mystery, and magic with function. She never, ever, ever forgets about functionality. Thank you, Homeworthy, for having me. See you next time. Goodbye.
Well, hello, Homeworthy. I'm Tim, and welcome to my home. I'm located in Southampton, New York. Coming in, let's look around. This house here behind me was built in 1972 for Nancy Ford, who was an executive at IBM in Tokyo, very dynamic woman. I bought this house in 2019. It had been derelict for some time, and when I purchased it, I had the idea of turning it into a very chic boutique hotel meets a villain lair. And so, as you can see, these stairs that you're standing on, they all float. And what will happen eventually, because we've only put this garden in the last couple of years, is the pachysandra will grow in around the steps. And I wanted it to feel like lily pads, that you were walking on lily pads. And then when you're in the driveway and you're coming up, you get this terrific vista. We have stereo in the stairs. So when I'm entertaining, I have the stereo on. So the minute you get out of the car and you're coming up to the house, you're getting a vibe. So let's go up the stairs. This landing here was an addition that I did, and the addition is inspired by all of the angles in the building, and also Norman Jaffe, who was a big architect out here. So we've incorporated wood with stone elements to really create that connection between nature and modern architectural material. So if you come through, we originally, all of these windows these were windows and not doors. And so we've taken out the windows, we put in sliding doors throughout the house so that it really opens up the space. And as you come along, there's a line here that goes a direction right through the center of the house. This house really feels like a tree house. It's this very interesting weave of stairs, and I'm going to show you that as we go through the house. So here we are on the first floor of the house. Originally, when I purchased this house, this was all walls. It had a very small entrance, and it really felt very small. And so what I did is we blew out all of the walls on this side of the house, and we put in floor to ceiling windows. We put in a slider door. Originally, at the end of this corridor was the laundry room. So when you entered the house and you look down here, you would see a washing machine. And it felt really, obviously, very uninviting and not particularly inspiring. So we blew it out. And what we did is we created all of this wood paneling. And behind this wood paneling are all of the closets, all of the laundry, all of the washing machines. This is all custom millwork. Even above us, we have really interesting shapes and lines that were hidden by sheetrock and a flat ceiling. So wherever we could take out any of the ceiling heights to get more drama, we did. And by incorporating the big wide plank oak, and this is with an engineered finish, so it's kind of got a rough texture to the oak, which again adds a little bit of drama. One of the interesting things that I have within the house are little connections to my childhood, and in particular James Bond films, science fiction, and for instance the electric outlets and the plates are all very much inspired by James Bond, with the engine turning and the stereotype knobs. And even on the ground, the air ducts in the floor are inspired. This is going to sound super nerdy, but they're inspired by the walls in the Death Star. So, you know, I kind of have these little jokes to myself around the house that, you know, when people say, oh, I love your floor vents, I'm like, oh, great. You know, they don't obviously know why I picked it and etc. So I have these little things from my childhood that sort of make me happy and bring me happiness. So you'll see them throughout the house. There's little nuances. I never like anything when it's too in your face. And so for me, subtlety is always better. And I'm going to show you one of the downstairs bedrooms, which is inspired really again by a lair, luxury hotel rooms, and then also a bit of postmodernism, which I'm really finding interesting. There's also a line. You'll see a line that was running through this corridor, and that runs right out to the deck out there. So we make sure that all of the lines are intersecting within the house. This house is like a giant puzzle, and it is a complete lesson in geometry. It was designed by Eugene Futterman, who was a very famous and well-known architect out here during the 70s and 80s. He started off very modern, and he actually transitioned more into shingle-style New England houses. So he had a very interesting career, but really what I find inspiring is his modernist work, which was really, really clever. So I'll show you, come on in here. Okay, so as an interior designer and architect, I'm always trying to find fun ways to make my house look a little bit more interesting. One of the really cool ideas that I had, well, I don't know, maybe I think it's cool, but the bathroom for the first floor, which has 2 bedrooms, didn't have any light in it. And I hate it when bathrooms don't have any light. So we did this cool panel, which allows natural light into the bathroom. So we have this really cool little element of see-through glass into the shower. And then, you know, I love art, I love books. I call this my toxic masculinity kind of layout. Originally, the bed in this room was facing, I think, this wall. And so what I did was I floated a custom bed. We did this really cool floating shelf. We put all my books, all my alien books, books that I've made. I've got Sex by Madonna. I've got Impey, all a bunch of architectural books, design books, Studio 54. So it's like all of the things that I love. This is a local artist. Two of these are both New York and local artists. So I like to support them. So when I think about the colors and textures for my house, I always gravitate to neutral tones. Black obviously was an important part of the house. I will tell you one thing that drives me crazy about black houses is whenever I drive past a black house, I'll see this really beautiful black house, and then they put white drapery in the windows, which completely ruins the aesthetic of a black house. So all of the drapery in the house are all sliders and rollers, they're all automated, and they're all black. So when I close off the windows and the doors, the exterior still has this really beautiful sculptural look, and there isn't any break at all. But the colors and the textures, again, very neutral. You won't see a lot of color in this house. Again, it's my house. I'm not a big fan of color. I love color in art, but for this house, it didn't feel really right. In fact, when I first started this house and really designing it, I had a lot of circles and I was going to do a lot of curves in the house, but the minute I started drawing curves and circles, it really just did not work with this house at all. And so with all of these sharp angles, I'm still trying to create softness and warmth. And so there's a lot of texture in rugs, pillows, boucle walls, and that sort of helps soften the edges of the house. And then we also have this sort of cool built-in wall closet. Originally, there was a closet that was going into there was a door, right? So we had a closet, but then what we did is we took that closet out, closed it off, and gave that to the laundry room. So the closet that was for the clothes turned into the laundry closet. So what we had to do was come up with a clever way of being able to hang clothing for the weekend, and then storage, which I use now for fabrics. So we came up with this really cool system in steel. Again, we're getting that vibe of, you know, all my little science fiction and James Bond elements. And then we have this kind of really cool pomo type of decorative wall element that I just did on the fly. When I was working with my contractor, he would come to work and I'd be like, you know, I think today I want to do this. And I'd sort of draw him a picture or I'd do it on a 3D model. And he'd be like, oh, okay. And we do it. And he'd be like, wow, that looks really good, you know. So we had a lot of fun. You know, the thing, I am single. I don't have somebody in my life saying, no, honey, I don't want to do that. You know, it's my house, so I could just do what I want. So this is a little guest bedroom, and I built a deck off this room so that it made the space feel bigger, because it's not a big house. It's only about 1,700 square feet. So one of the goals that I tried to do when I was, you know, working on this house was really open up to the outdoor areas and to give additional living space off the bedrooms. Yeah, so one of the features of this room is a really pretty little deck that we have. It's only about 8 foot by 8 foot, but it's enough space for you to be able to sit down, have a nice cup of tea in the morning, look out at the birds and the trees. This property was originally created in around the 1920s, and it was part of a larger estate. And I think around the 60s, they cut off some flag lots. And so when Nancy Ford purchased this house in 1972, I think she bought the land in 1971, what she loved about it was it already had these amazing established trees. So I've inherited this incredible landscape of trees. Like, for instance, this tree she planted in 1972 when it was yay high, and Nancy actually came and saw the house a couple of years ago because she was very curious as to know what was happening with the house. This house was in a architectural book on Hamptons modernist houses, and the author had actually found Nancy, and I didn't realize that Nancy, the original owner, was still alive. Nancy has retired and lives in Palm Beach, but she came up with her husband and her sister, and they walked through the house. Funny little side fact, this room that we were just talking about was her son's room, and it was called the mushroom room. And that was because when the house was built, there was no foundation. And so this house would get, you know, all the mold and mushrooms. I don't know how healthy that is. And then Nancy was saying, you know, obviously they couldn't leave it like that. So they came back in about 10, 15 years later, and they put in a proper foundation. But this is nicknamed the mushroom room by Nancy Ford, who built the house. So yeah, we have a little deck. I kind of love elements of Southern California. And when I was a kid growing up in Australia, I loved how there was this really beautiful connection in, you know, like Lake Tahoe and all of those areas where they had this connection of indoor, outdoor. A lot of the trees that I planted around the house are year-round evergreens, because having grown up in Australia, I've always been used to having greenery all year round. And the only thing I don't like about living in the Hamptons is in the winter, everything, you know, obviously all the leaves drop and it gets really, really gray. And so what I've tried to do is plant as much as possible to give me a year-round feeling of green. None of this was here when I moved in. I've done all of the landscaping. I did all of the landscaping myself. I did a lot of the hardscape. I put in the pavers. I built walls. I had a stepfather in Australia that used to build stone walls when I was a little kid, and he would make me help him. And of course I loved it. And so I've always loved building walls and landscaping. And during COVID, this was a huge way of like really letting go of the stress, the fear, and the anxiety that we were all feeling during that time. And so even in the short period of 4 years that I've lived here, everything's really starting to grow in beautifully. And I want it to feel really a little bit Southern California, more so than, you know, Hamptons, privets, and green grass. So that's just a little interesting side story. But let's move on upstairs. I want to show you what's on the second floor. Okay, so here we come up to the main floor. I want to talk a little bit and show you the kitchen. This is originally the format of the kitchen. We only tweaked it slightly. What I loved when I first came into this house, when I was walking through it, was this massive light shaft, which gives you this beautiful amount of natural light that flows through. The only really change that I did for this area is that I added a storage area for my coffee machines and tea and water. And on this area, originally this was just going to be, this was an island. Same shape, but you could walk around it. But what I didn't have really was really good trash receptacles. And so we closed it off. We've added trash receptacles down here. And then weirdly enough, the stovetop never had a vent for exhaust. And so I put in a vent so that we can take air out when we cook. But literally it's almost the exact layout from the 1972. I just added a lot of, you know, mosaic tile. We came up with this custom terrazzo that I designed with a gentleman in Long Island City. You know, all of the faucets are all dark. We have lava stone hardware. And so it gives us a new element. I also wanted to get away a little bit from white oak cabinets, which seem to be everywhere right now. So what we did is we came up with a darker tone for the exteriors of the cabinet fronts. So with the open shelving, a lot of people either love them or hate them. This was already here when I bought the house, so I kept it because ultimately I don't have a lot of storage, so it's very functional. Also, You know, I have Wertz ceramics, which are all handmade in Europe, and they were the dinnerware that was used by Noma, and that's how I discovered them. They were out of Copenhagen, and so every piece is unique, handmade, and so I think with pieces and open shelving like this, I think if you have really beautiful things, I think it's a perfect way to showcase them. Ultimately, again, I've kept it very monochromatic, and so, you know, we don't have a lot of color and a lot of variety. It all sort of reads very much in a unison way. I even have like crazy rectangular hand-blown glasses. You know, we've taken in elements, you know, just sort of, again, a wink to all of the geometry in this house. So yeah, I kind of like how it worked. And what I did, the only thing I really did was I added in hidden LEDs underneath the shelf to add an accent of light at night. So at night, what I did, we don't have a lot of overhead lights in this room. So at night when I'm lighting, I keep it very dark and moody. So we have LED strip there. We have an LED strip on this cabinet. One thing I did add here, which I thought was pretty clever, was I added in these little cabinets behind the electric stovetop, so that I could put in all of my spices and things, and they were easily, I could easily get to them, but I could also hide it very easily as well. So the whole point in storages here is to really keep everything tucked away and as clean as possible during the course of a day. So from here, I've got just a little small open dining room. One thing interesting here is we had my terrazzo guy made this dining tabletop. It cost a fortune. It was like $10,000. But to offset that cost, I used a West Elm planter on the base of it, which cost $400. So I love like mixing high and low price points. I'm not a snob. I'm happy to tell you where I can cut costs and hopefully give you ideas on what to do in your house. And so I work from here sometimes. I like dining tables that are used in other ways. I remember I saw a dining table of Elton John's in a magazine once, and he had like mounds of books on it. So I like having books here. I have my laptop. Oh, look, there's even some awards that I've won on the table. How strange. And so I just have little knickknacks here. And these chairs are all vintage. They're from the 80s. They're by one of my favorite architects and designers. I collect his work. His name is Mario Botta. I have a bunch of Mario's work in the basement. So I collect Mario Botta's work. So these are my dining chairs. One thing I wanted to point out in this room was this idea that I came up with, and where we have the batten and we have mirror. And because I wanted to add another element, and people always love this. And so when I have candles and lighting on at dinner at night, you know, the light bounces off the mirror within the ceiling height. For entertaining, I use this table a lot more in the winter, obviously. And then in the summer, we do all of my dining outside. I don't entertain a lot. When I do, though, I make sure it's special. I tend to, you know, not cook so much. I have a chef that comes in. I don't know if I should admit that. But I don't want to be bothered with the cooking. I just sort of really want to be focused on entertaining, talking, meeting people, discussing art, architecture, music, fashion. I love to just connect with people on anything creative. So I want to be really connected with the people that are coming here for dinner. So I leave all the cooking to somebody else who's better at it than me. But I will tell you, I make an incredible trifle. And I just read in the New York Times recently that trifles are back in fashion. So I can attest that mine is probably one of the best you could ever eat. But anyway, here we are. This is the main room of the house. As you can see, it's 2 levels. It's got this massive, expansive feel and vibe to it. You know, one of the I love this. This is my favorite room in the house. And at night when I sit down here, you know, we put in all of this really cool LED lighting behind the sofas. All these sconces are from the original house. You can see there's a wall texture on every wall in the house. What we did is we added a rough micro concrete plaster texture to every surface in this house. And I gotta tell you, it's aging really, really well. I wasn't sure if it would. The color I used on the walls is a color by Benjamin and Moore called Revere Pewter. And the Revere Pewter is a terrific base color. It's on the warmer grayer side. So what we did is we took that color, we added, I think 30% white to it to lighten it up. And we've literally done the whole house. And so in here, originally this was a very boring fireplace. It was a square box and that was it. And I have always been obsessed with ziggurat temples, you know, whether it be Mesopotamian or Mayan, Aztec. In fact, Moonraker, one of those James Bond films, that is from my childhood, which I think was, you know, I think around 1980. The villain had an incredible lair in Brazil, and it had all of these really cool elements, and I've always just really loved them. And yeah, again, I was like, am I crazy doing this? I was like, I must be insane. But I thought, why not? You know, we framed it, I drew it up. I thought, you know what, if I hate it, I can always just tear it down. And again, my contractor was just like, I have no idea what you're doing right now. But he loved it. He just, whenever my contractor comes back to this house, he's always like, oh my God, I love it, I love it. So, which always makes me really happy. I will say one thing though, whenever anybody comes to the house, I always get the same comment when they leave, and that is, thanks Tim, you know, I feel really inspired. And that's ultimately what I want. I want people to come here and leave with maybe a different perspective, and maybe a new perspective, and a different way of thinking about things, because that's ultimately what I like to do. And so with this, I really just had a lot of fun. Nicer elements that I love in this room is the green wall. And originally, when I purchased this house, it was just a flat wall. And when I was a kid growing up in Australia, I grew up in a house that was by a Swedish architect. And we had all these really amazing built-in planters. And the exterior of the house looked very boring. Like you would never think anything exciting was going on inside this house. But then the minute you opened the door, it was very much like this. You saw these really cool angles and double height ceilings and really amazing like cathedral ceilings, and these massive columns that would just go up all the way to the top of the roof. And we had indoor gardens, and it was like, I loved it. So a lot of these elements are also from my childhood. And we had this beautiful indoor garden, and I know all about it because I was the one responsible for watering them and keeping everything green. So here what I did is I took an element that I'd seen at a Paul Rudolph apartment where he had, well, apartment houses, he used it a lot, but he would do angular walls. And so what I thought, well, you know, I've got the angles here on the fireplace. I want to carry the angle off this wall so that I create a bed for my plants. And so again, that's what we did. And another really cool element that I love about my house, I really love my house, I think you can probably tell that, is when I moved in, I had these skylights, and they must have been 20 years old. They barely worked. They were by remote control. The only way I could ever close them was I had to literally stand on top of 2 chairs with my remote going like this, trying to close them. And it got really, really annoying. And so I called the people that originally had installed them, and it was COVID. They were crazy busy. They never got back to me. No one ever came over. And I thought, well, what can I do? So I thought, well, let's put in these cool struts. So I drew it up on a 3D model, gave it to my contractor. Again, he scratched his head, but again, he loved it. He thought it was good. And what I love about this, it offers so many things. It's cut out 50% of the light. It's given me terrific light for the plants to grow. And then if you see over here, you get this incredible light play on the walls. And you get that throughout the day. And as the day and the sun moves, they really become this architectural piece of art. And it also, for me, goes back again to a film that I loved, which was called Blade Runner by Ridley Scott. And, you know, I mean, a lot of people didn't, you know, way younger than I am, but Ridley Scott in the 80s would do these films and he'd, well, you know, Ridley Scott, Paul Schrader, who did American Gigolo, you know, they would have these blinds, right? And then they would pump smoke into the room and then they'd put a light behind it. And so you'd get these really incredible filters of light and stripes and shadow play on walls. So what I've really done is I've able to kind of really create that. And as you see, it kind of really adds a really beautiful element to the house. An element of this living room, as you've probably noticed again, is geometry. And I have the coffee table, which was from the 80s. It's in travertine. We have a cylinder, a sphere, pyramid shape. I'm not very good at my geometry. I can't remember the actual names of them. But what I did is I've taken those elements. I created pillows on the sofas. These are from the 70s, actually originally designed in the 60s. This was purchased in Milan in about 2016 at auction, and I'd had it in storage for quite a few years. You know, when I did the interiors for this house, I didn't have a lot of money. And so what I did is I went through my basement, which is where I keep all of my extra things that I pick up along the way. And I had these sofas at an upholsterer, and I thought, you know what, this could work really, really well. And I'll give you a little tip for cat homeowners. It's always good to cover your sofas in a boucle, because if they ever scratch the fabric like this one does, you don't really notice it because it's already boucle fabric. So that's just a little cat tip. This is Minx. She's a little Scottish fold. She's pretty cute. And so that's sort of part of the elements. You'll also see a slight element of Santa Fe with the pottery sort of inlaid into open crevices and areas in the house. Again, that gives you a little bit of Santa Fe vibe, which I also love. I love Santa Fe. I love Mayan. I love Incan. I guess, you know, being Australian, I've always been fascinated by American culture and its history. And so a lot of those elements are within this house. Part of that Santa Fe vibe, I think, comes from my work history. And I had grown up in Australia. I'd moved to London in 1989. I was just a wee nipper. And I was pretty cute back then, actually. And I walked into Ralph Lauren on Bond Street, and they literally hired me on the spot. I had the blonde hair and the tan and the blue eyes and the Ralph Lauren look. They hired me, and I was introduced to this whole world of Ralph Lauren. And, you know, this feeling of being taken away through images. And a lot of his images were of Native American textiles, blankets. I remember one of the first collections at Ralph Lauren that when I worked there was all very Navajo and Santa Fe. So it kind of really seeped in. And from London, Ralph Lauren moved me to New York in 1995. It's not they asked me to come, it's just that I pushed my way to come. I'd always wanted to live in New York ever since I was a little kid. I had a very glamorous auntie who lived her whole life in New York, and she was always, to me, extremely fascinating, glamorous. And so I pushed my way to New York. I got here in 95, and I ended up working at Ralph Lauren in design for many years. So as much as this is purely me, there are elements of really, of that history. And one thing I learned at that company was not to spend too much time on trends. Because what you don't want to do, and I bring this through into my work as an interior designer, is I don't want anything to look too now or too trendy, because I want this house to age well. I don't want to be sitting in this room in 2 years' time thinking, oh God, this is suddenly out of fashion. So when you follow your own philosophy, what feels right to you, I think you come up with something timeless. Because I didn't design this house for anybody else. I didn't design this house to impress anybody. It's my play area. And so for me, all these elements just tell a story. And it really tells the story of my life. That sounds very dramatic, but it's supposed to be, it really for me shows the power of interior design and architecture. And I feel bad to say this so late in the conversation, but my father was an architect, and he really instilled in me this love of architecture. And I would go on building sites with him a lot as a kid, and I loved my dad, and we would spend a lot of time together on building sites, and I was really big into Lego. I think had I not gotten into fashion, and I blame Duran Duran for that, I probably would have become an architect. Because the way I got into fashion was in 1981, I was living in Perth. You couldn't buy great clothes, and so I ended up making clothes from English fashion magazines, and David Bowie, and then all my girlfriends wanted me to make their clothes, and so that's how that whole thing, and I spent 20, 30 years in fashion until I moved into interiors and architecture 10 years. So it's really been a journey home for me in a lot of ways. But anyway, enough of me. Let's go upstairs. I want to show you what's up here as well. Okay, so this is one of my favorite rooms. This is all original from when the house was built, was this built-in banquette. All of the woodwork around here was original. We have another fireplace on this floor. This is the TV room. Had a built-in banquette originally. And these windows originally were sliders, and I hate sliding windows because I hate the screens, the fly screens. So I removed all of the sliding windows, and all of the windows in this house where they can be for regulation reasons are just picture windows. One of the favorite things in this room is my $700 coffee table ensemble, which I purchased in Palm Springs a couple of years ago at one of the Palm Springs Modernism talks. And I saw this table, I was like, wow, I love it. And so we have this really interesting piece of sculpture is actually made out of foam. And this was a model for a sculpture that was cast on this. This is a vase purchased from Jeff Lincoln, a gallery up in Southampton. When I walked in and saw that vase, I told Jeff, I said, Jeff, I have the perfect house for that. That vase was made for my house. Not that I ever really use it as a vase, but I love it. So you can sit up here, you got a lot of greenery. So one of the things in this room is, as I talked about earlier, was the feeling that this house is like a tree house. And I'm hoping you're gonna start seeing that this element will be easily recognizable, because these massive windows look out onto all of the greenery, and all throughout here is just this beautiful open treescape. So this is the beginning of the tree house. We got this central staircase that goes all the way up through the center of the house, and then in through here we go up even further into my living area. And from there, you're gonna really feel like you're in a treehouse. So let's go and look at it. Okay, so here we are. We're coming up to the 4th floor of the house. And this is my living area and my ensuite. When I first talked to you today, I mentioned how I wanted this house to feel a bit like a hotel. And on some of my trips abroad, I love to go to Sweden a lot. And there's a hotel in Stockholm called Ett Hem. And it was designed by Elsa Crawford. And what I loved about some of the rooms is they had the shower and the bathtub in their actual room. And to me, it felt really warm, cozy, inviting, honeymoonish. And I wanted to open up this room. And so I'm going to show you the bathroom, but originally the bathroom was all closed off and you just had this one space. What I managed to do here is I built a platform and raised the bed up enough. And then again, we had just very simple windows in this room, and what we did is floor to ceiling windows, right? So it really adds this incredible look. So when I wake up in the morning, I have these amazing trees, you know, the blinds come up and then you just see this incredible greenery. And so I love it. It's one of my favorites. I have a custom bed. Again, we have all of the little buttons and notches beside the bed on the nightstand so I can close my blinds. I have a lot of LED lighting in the windows and behind the bed. And you can see there's this drape here. And I want to talk a little bit about the drape because the drape is functional. Because when I opened up the bathroom, you have all this incredible new natural light that comes in. But I don't know about you, but I need pitch black darkness when I'm sleeping and I don't want to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning with sun coming in. So what actually happens is this drape closes all the way across this area through here and it encloses it. So it's pitch black at night. And then we have a fan that's, again, very lairish. We have air conditioning, so the whole area keeps very cool. Air is flowing, but it's pitch black. So I get to sleep, which I really need because I'm always working. So here we have this bathroom, which again, very inspired by, you know, Villa and Lairs. We got stainless steel cabinets. We have very kind of concrete textured walls. What I loved about this paneling, it's actually an exterior paneling. And what I really loved about it is it's the pieces, the slabs are 8 foot by like 4 foot wide. So they're these really big slabs. So by doing the slabs, I didn't have to have a lot of seams in the textured concrete. So it just looks all like one piece. We have use of a dark travertine. I loved a soaking tub. So what I can do is I can sit there with my head there and I can watch my TV. And yeah, we have all of the fixtures. They're all very kind of modern and clean. This is by Graff out of England. And yeah, it's a great little room. I love my bedroom. Okay, so one last thing I wanted to show you before we head outside is my closet. But also while I'm standing here, you can see I have all this, again, another greenery planter that I put in. And you know, again, it adds this really subtropical element to the house. But this was a really interesting space because originally they had it as an office and the closets were upstairs. In fact, there still is a closet upstairs, but it's hidden behind cabinetry. You can't see it, but I needed more space. So I turned the office into a closet, and because it's such a small house, I didn't want to close off anything because it would just make everything look smaller and smaller. And originally this was just a wall of cupboards, really boring. And so I thought, well, what can I do to, again, make it cool, make it feel like me? And I always remembered like Comme des Garçons stores or a Tom Ford store where, you know, you had these really beautiful hanging rails that were suspended. And so what I did, and thankfully all my clothes are one color, and so it reads well. So what we did is I added in this floating hanging bar, and I didn't close anything off. You know, I've left it all open. Again, it's sort of a little color coordinated. A friend of mine who is good friends with Halston came in one day and saw it and was like, yo, Halston used to do his closets the same way. And of course, I took that as a huge compliment as I'm a big Halston fan. So we have this, and then over here we did some cabinets. You can see pictures of me when I was a little kid. Look how cute I was. And then these are all pictures of my family, friends, everyone that I've known really through my life, from Australia, London, New York, and beyond. So from here, I'm going to show you outside. Let's go. All right, so a little bit earlier I mentioned how the house wasn't particularly big, and to expand the feeling of the house, I've added in a lot of exterior areas for living, dining. One of the areas I built is this dining area. Originally, that's an original wall for the house, but it was right over this line of stone. And the whole area back here was nothing. In fact, you couldn't even get to the back of the house through the side of the house. So we built this walkway. We have this beautiful enclosed dining area, which looks up at the canopy of the trees at night. It's super beautiful. And then I'm going to take you through to the back, which is one of my favorite areas. So come on in. So here we have a little area that is one of my favorites because, again, it's all open. You see the trees, you get great sunlight in the summer, and we have a beautiful little seating area. Originally, when I purchased this house, it didn't have a pool, and unfortunately I can't have a pool in this house because my property is on a wetland. And one of the first things I found out about when I purchased this property was that there was no way in hell that I could have a pool. So what do you do when you can't have a pool is you put in a hot tub. So in the last winter, we put in a hot tub, and so it's all built into the deck, and you can easily just sit in here with your buddies, your girlfriend, whoever, and chill out, watch the sun go down. We have a lot of birds around this house. We have a lot of blue jays and cardinals, and I love to watch them enjoying this incredible area. The chairs and all of the furnishing here is by Palo Lenti, which is an Italian outdoor furniture company. They are super, super comfortable. And again, they tie really well back into the aesthetic of the house. And you can kind of see as well how, the house feels a bit like a tree house. That's my bedroom up there. We have a friendly owl that keeps all the woodpeckers away from ruining the woodwork, because they love to try and find worms. Every now and then you may see a cat in a shot. So they also love living out here, and they're trained not to harm any of the birds. One of the other areas that I wanted to do was a fire pit. And so what I did is this was originally just a wall. All of this landscaping I did myself. I put all of these trees in, and the idea is to block out all of the neighbors' houses, driveways, so that I have more privacy during the summer and even privacy in the winter. So what we did is we took a center around these trees, and we've opened up a space for the fire pit. And from up there, you get a great silhouette of the house. And again, with the fire pit, I really utilize a lot of things that I loved as a kid. So I want to show you the inspiration and thought process that went into my fire pit, because it's kind of cool. So I want to share it with you. Let's go and have a look. Okay, so here we have the fire pit, and you'll see there's an interesting layout of textures and stonework. I wanted to utilize, again, sort of some of the things that I'd loved design-wise. One of them was a Charlotte Perriand Rio table, which I always thought was a beautiful table. But then again, I've told you already, I'm a nerdy kind of guy, but there was a Duran Duran logo in the 80s that they did for their side project Arcadia, and it had all these really cool dissecting circles and lines. So I utilized the Charlotte Perriand Rio table, that Duran Duran logo, and then there's a little bit of a nuclear signage in this, and as you see, it all splits up into different circular shapes. And then what we did is we took different sized pebbles and mixed it with concrete steel trim. So this is all a steel frame. And then we just had fun, you know, putting in the cement, putting in the stones to be able to create these different patterns around this whole area. And then for the fire pit, I wanted to do something that was sort of really functional. And this way, what's great about it is all of my wood storage is around the fire pit, and it's easily accessible to anyone that they want to stoke the fire up. And as you can see, if we look back against the house, you kind of really get a feeling of the whole property and this split, fractured architecture that was designed by Eugene Futterman in 1972. Behind these trees is Michael Bloomberg's property, which was it's a beautiful estate. One thing I do know about his property, he does have a golf green that apparently is the same one as his favorite one in France. But as a neighbor, I gotta say, he's one of the best. Whenever I have a question or a problem, I remember when I first moved here, everybody was using their leaf blowers like every day, even on the weekends. It would drive me insane. So I got to speak to all of the neighbors, and we made a rule that no one leaf blows either Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And he's always been super cool about, you know, anything that we have questions on. He's a great, great neighbor, and I'm a big fan. The garden is, I put it in all myself. Again, we have a lot of evergreens. And so what we do is, you know, all of this deck is the original layout. We just had it redone in Ipe, which is a wood allowed to be used for wetland areas. So around the house, I built this wall, built that myself, put in all of this. None of this was here when I moved in. I love Japanese gardens, so I'm creating my own little Japanese oasis. We'll be putting in more trees over here to block off more and give more privacy. What I wanted to create steps going down that would have all of these evergreens growing in it. So I love it looking very overgrown. And so then we have a gate out to the front of the house too, on the side. I think home means to me a place of recharging and tranquility, quiet, in touch with nature. Because our lives get so hectic and crazy, I really need somewhere to come back and recharge. So today I hope I've inspired you a little bit by my home. Maybe you'll think a little bit differently about how architecture and interior design should really be a personal story, and you don't really need to be doing something that everyone else is going to like. It's really about what you love. So Homeworthy, thank you for coming. I've got to get back to work, so I'm going to love and leave you here, and have a great day. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.